Yeah, once again, so this class is dedicated to Figa Gita Bas Chava, my grandmother passed away today. Yeah, so her claim to fame, something that fascinated me, was that she stole planes from the British. Now, plane parts, I should really say. The planes would be kind of deconstructed post World War II, and then they were trying to be sold into America and different places. We're going to buy them, and the broker was an Israeli, Gidon, who I met many times. He just stole the parts and broke them apart. And with the knowledge, there was government officials in Britain that did know, Jewish, some people that were involved that felt wanted to help Israel. And they stole the parts, and then he would ship them off to Israel, and where they would reconstruct them, I believe, and use that to fight. My grandmother was like, she would drive the parts from the ports to the airport, or from the airport to the ports, something like that. She did a lot of cool stuff. She grew up in Brooklyn. Anyway, awesome, amazing lady, and it's very apropos that she passed away, and she will be buried, God willing, this week. Not tomorrow, but the next day, which talks about this week's Parsha. This week's Parsha is our first funeral. Neshama is coming into bodies, Neshama is leaving bodies, and what we do with the body, eulogizing. And nevertheless, the title, even though it opens up with a funeral, it's titled "The Life of Sarah," Chaya Sarah. Yeah, Chaya Sarah, our foremother. Is that the right word? She passed away last week. She passed away when she heard the news of her son was getting slaughtered. Well, he was brought up as a korban, and she assumed that he was going to get killed. And it says her soul flew out of her body from the shock. Just to mention, the Mefarshim all agree, most agree, and this is the majority opinion, that her time was really, that's when she was supposed to pass away, at 127 years old on that day. The catalyst through which she passed away was this news, which is, you might say, rather tragic. Obviously, it is tragic for a person to pass away in such a way. But nevertheless, the Torah is telling us in this week's Parsha, Sarah lived 127 years. Don't think that she was supposed to live any longer than that. She lived the number of years she was supposed to live. That was 127. Despite the fact that you might think she passed early from Shah, everybody lives exactly how long they're supposed to live, says the Torah. It's a very powerful lesson. Now the question is, why does it talk about the life of Sarah? We know the title of a parsha encapsulates the entire parsha. Now the life of Sarah is seemingly inappropriate because it talks about everything that happened after she already passed away. So the classic Hasidic explanation is, what a person lives for, that continues on after the neshama left the body. In fact, the neshama still helps that because it's coming from the neshama, it's coming from the soul. The soul is trying to accomplish something in this world, and it's best done in a body. It's trying to express itself and trying to create an environment where it can express itself, and everything in the environment truly wants to be a part of that. Sometimes it's just stuck in a shell, in a klipa, but it's trying to get it out. But what Sarah was trying to accomplish, which was a level of divine consciousness, the continuation of the covenant, the ultimate, she wanted the Torah to be revealed into this world. It remained spiritual. She's trying to bring it to physical, and it was done through a certain people, and that was her son Yitzchak, who was then going to pass it on. She knew eventually it was going to come through a bloodline, through her progeny, and she was trying to accomplish all these different things. The idea of the Eshel, which we'll speak about in a moment. Avram had a tent, or some say it was a tree, where he hosted guests. The idea of bringing people in, building a community, a tight community, teaching people, educating people, providing for nourishing both their souls and their bodies. That all continued on even more so. And that is true life. That was her life, and therefore her life continues. Even though it might not be in a body anymore, but what she's trying to accomplish, what her life was, what her life is, continues on. And that's why the Torah, that is the lesson that the Torah is trying to give us. That the soul doesn't necessarily have to be in the body for it to be living. It's not, it doesn't have to. In fact, there's a classic, I've said it many times, the whole Zohar on that the body's actually, the soul is found more after it passes, after it leaves the body than when it's in the body. When it's in the body, it's constrained within the body. It can only be in a certain time and place. But once it leaves the body, it's everywhere again. It goes back into the essence of God, and God's essence is everywhere. It's everything. Everything is within God's essence. So therefore, it's not constrained by the body. It actually continues on. Okay, the question is, did Avram not tell Sarah? Why didn't Avram tell Sarah that he was going to bring up Yitzchak? And he understood that God didn't want her to know. She actually, the Torah tells us last week that she had a greater level of prophecy than he did. And the fact that if God wanted her to know, she would have known. So we're getting like an insight. We get a few insights into how tzaddikim work in this world. We're talking about true tzaddikim, the ones that, operate on a level of prophecy. And you might say, like you read all these Baal Shem Tov stories, these stories of tzaddikim, and they're able to look into the Zohar and look into a book and see what's going on in another part of the world and all these different things. Do they not use that all the time? Like, why can't they do that all the time and help us all the time? It's because they also understand that God does not want the world to operate in such a way. He wants the world should operate in a natural manner, despite the fact that I might know the answer, and I might know the truth, and I might know what's really going on, and I can change that. It says a tzaddik geyser hakadosh baruch hu mekayim. It says a tzaddik makes a decree and Hashem will fulfill it. But they know, they're very in touch with Hashem. Their relationship is on a whole different level than our relationship. They're very in tune to what Hashem wants and doesn't want. Hashem does not want these prophets, everyone to be a prophet, walking around as a prophet. And there's different reasons for that. I mean, there's no pleasure. The pleasure that Hashem gets from when we don't understand something, yet we still do it. And we do it with fervor, and we do it with excitement. Hashem has the joy is much deeper. That's why when Hashem told Yitzchak, I want you to bring your son as a carbon on a mountain that I will show you, and a place that I'll show you. In other words, Hashem was saying, I'm not going to show you yet. You don't know where that is. Just go. Lech lecha, at the beginning of the parsha, just go, Hashem says, just go. Even though you don't know where you're going. If I tell you to go, will you go? Yeah, I'll go. And that gives Hashem tremendous pleasure. And from a selfish reason, it actually gives us more reward. So by not knowing that's accomplishing what we need to accomplish. So she did not pass away before her time. It says that Avram returned to Beersheba, which is still Beersheba to today. After the Kedah, why did he return back to Beersheba? In Beersheba, he had the Eshel, which was a hostel, like a big hotel set up in the middle of the desert. It's right above the Negev, right above the desert. It's in the desert, basically. It is in the desert. And we spoke about, I'm sure you guys know more about that from last week's parsha. And he loved that Eshel. He loved, because that's what he lived for. He lived for serving other people. Avram, it says in the Torah that he would travel from Hebron, which he's going to live in Hebron now. He would travel from Hebron to Beersheba and back and forth. Like, he's got his business, you go travel to his business. So he couldn't, it was his dacha, it was his country house. It was a place that he went for pleasure, and he would go there from time to time. It's very important to have something that you're involved in that brings you tremendous pleasure. Even if it's not the main thing that you do, you should have a passion for something. Okay, so we see that Avram eulogized for Sarah. So he purchases this land, and when he tries to buy it, they want to give them for free. He doesn't want to buy it. And the reason why he didn't want to buy it, so the reason why he did buy it is because he wanted it to be recorded on what's called a shtar, a document, a contract, that you should know this land, I bought this land. This land, it has transferred ownership. A gift could be a little bit, when you try to transfer ownership via gift to someone, it can lead itself to problems. There's no proof. But Avram said, I'm going to exchange it. Here's money, and I want it written down. And where was it written down? In the Torah. It's clearly written in the Torah. And the Torah, nobody denies the Torah being, even if you don't believe in the Torah, whatever it is, nobody denies the Torah being very, very old, thousands of years old. And here it is. It's something recorded that the Hebron, there's a plot of land in Hebron called Maras HaMachpelah, which is where our patriarchs and everyone are buried to today, which we do not have ownership over. He wanted to say this does belong to us because it's going to be disputed in the future. But nevertheless, I want it to be recorded down that this belongs to us. This belongs to my children. It's an inheritance to them. Thanks to the Israeli government for another thing not letting us keep. So he buries her, he buys it, and he eulogizes for her. Now, typically, the question is, what are we eulogizing for? Is a eulogy for the family that remains, or is it eulogy for the soul that passed? Who is it benefiting? And the Torah tells us that it's for the soul that passed. It says when the soul passes away at the burial, the heavens, the heavenly court is listening in on what is being said about the person. When it makes a judgment, it's using that as evidence for or against the neshama. In other words, how long it needs to, how long it needs to go to Gehenna, perhaps, whatever, how long it needs to, what kind of process is necessary. And we don't want to, so eulogize. So we say only good things about the person. However, there's a big trap, or there's a big disclaimer, says the Torah, the Talmud, about eulogizing. Excessive eulogization is a big problem. It actually harms the neshama more than it helps it. So if you start saying things which are untrue, or you exaggerate about that person, it says the Zohar, it says in the Torah, it causes more harm to that neshama than good. And being that is the case, Chabad and other Hasidim, and not just Hasidim, a lot of Jews don't eulogize, or very, very minimal eulogizing. Any time I've been to a Chabad burial, like they buried somebody who was a Chassid, there was no eulogy. There is no eulogy. Maybe like later at the Shiva, they'll speak about the neshama, and it's interesting about Shiva itself. What's going on during Shiva is very interesting. But nowadays we don't eulogize because we have to be very careful with the way we eulogize. Oh, I have it right here. There's a medrash in Koheles. That's where it's brought down. The heaven is the Shemayim is listening to of what's going on, what they're saying about the person who passed. Okay, so Abraham buries Sarah. Now it's time to find a shidduch for Yitzchak. So Abraham calls his servant Eliezer and says, I want you to go to Aram Naharayim, I want you to go to Haran, and to find a shidduch. He's going back to where Avram came from. So why did he have to go back to his hometown? Eliezer asked him, why do I have to go over there? Are there not good enough people over here? And really, the Torah was telling us, Eliezer wanted his daughter to marry Yitzchak. Eliezer was an unbelievable servant. He was a wonderful person. He stuck side by side with Avram through all the trials and tribulations. He was the one who basically led the army against the 5 kings, against the 4 kings, I should say. And very loyal. He's called an Eved Neman, which is also what Moshe is called. Moshe Rabbeinu was also called an Eved Neman, a trustworthy Eved, but it's a whole different type of Eved. It's a whole different type of servant, completely one with its master, knows exactly what the master wants. The most trusted. You can bequeath everything to that servant, and everything will work out exactly as the master wants it to work out. So he said, I have a daughter. Why can't you marry my daughter? So the Talmud tells us that Avram knew about Rivka. He knew that that is the one that's for Abaskol, came out and told him that's the one for Yitzchak. But he didn't reveal it to Eliezer. He didn't want to get into a discussion with Eliezer about it. So what did he do? He actually told him, I want you to go with your own eyes and find out who the girl is. Yeah, you have a question? Now I want you to go down. I want you to go there, and I want you to see for yourself. So what happened? Okay, so he sends him all of his stuff. He says he writes in a document. Avram writes in a document. All of his possessions are given over to the one who will marry my son. And Eliezer starts heading down there, and he says on the way, I'll know she's the one if she does certain things, certain acts. One is she's going to come out in the evening time and she's going to pick up. Yeah. Okay. So Rabbi. Okay. So Rabbi Weinberg wants to mention the possessions are given to Yitzchak, not the one who will marry him. Okay. Whatever. We know who gets the possessions once she's brought into the house. It actually says the Arizal said he had prophecy for two reasons. Number one, he never bargained for a mitzvah, and number two, whatever his wife asked for, he would buy it. Just to mention something interesting. So he goes down there, brings he says the woman's going to come out at the evening time. She should come out in the evening time. She should be by a well, and she'll offer me a place to. She'll offer me drink, and she'll offer my camels something to drink, which is quite a novelty. They're very poor. Everybody's very poor back then. And not only that, camels drink, like in one setting, like 10 gallons of water, no problem. And there were 10 camels. The amount of water that was going to be consumed was going to be astronomical. Very expensive. And of course, he goes down there. And before he even finishes saying what his prayer to Hashem, he's saying this out loud to Hashem, it seems. I don't know if it's out loud. He's definitely talking to Hashem. A woman comes out, a young lady comes out, and this is exactly what happened. Offers him a drink, and he is in shock, says the Torah. Rashi brings down, he's in shock, cannot believe. So the next question out of his mouth is, I have to make sure that you're related to Avram in some way. And he asks her, who's your father, who are your parents, and she explains who it is. And he's just flabbergasted. He's beside himself, and he knew for sure that, wow, okay, my daughter is not the one for Avram. That was the moment that he realized, now I know why my daughter is not for Avram. And the truth is, Eliezer comes from, in a Kabbalistically speaking, Avram, Eliezer has like a blemish in his neshama. As perfect as he is, the Torah is not very fair. The Torah is not always fair. In fact, even when we're going to find when they divided up the land amongst the tribes, certain tribes got a much larger portion than other parts of the tribe. And the Torah is teaching us life is not fair. The Torah is not fair. You get exactly what you're supposed to get. Whether this person gets more and you get less, or vice versa, that has nothing to do with it. That's not for you. Avram was telling Eliezer, you don't come from my people. As you're a wonderful person, and you truly are. I'm not going to be able to explain it to you logically, but there's some blemish within your neshama that's going to live on throughout your family that I can't have mixing into my family at this point in time, at least. And this came into fruition when he saw how successful he was in his shlichus for Avram.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what did not Eliezer convert, or like whatever that meant back then? Like, didn't he accept the covenant?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Because Abraham circumcised everybody. So
yes, and not only that, he was perfect, but there was still a blemish. There's a blemish within him, within his progeny, and Eliezer didn't understand that. He's like, I don't understand. I'm as holy as I'm probably the holiest person you've ever converted, or whatever that was. Why aren't you accepting me and accepting my kid? And Avram said, I can't explain it to you. Right now, it's inexplainable. And it has to come from my family. There's something about my family. Now that changed. That changed by the giving of the Torah. But until then, it had to be strictly from Avram's, it had to come from Avram's family, from his father, Terach, and had to be from that area, that type of family, for whatever reason. But that changes in another, 1,000 years from now, it's going to change. That whole process is going to change. And you're totally right. It's a question, something we don't understand. But that's why he had him go out and do it himself. He says, I can't explain it to you. I know it's not going to make sense. And I know everything I've told you, you're going to see for yourself. And here, it's not only there's an argument whether Avram could have explained it or not. The point is, Avram didn't want to he didn't want to sit down and try to talk to Eliezer about it. He knew that Rivka was the one for him. And here's another example, says the Torah, of tzaddikim have prophecy, but they don't reveal it. And they just tell people, I need you to just go and do something like this. I'm not going to get into explaining it to you. Just go work it out. You saw by the Rebbe very often. He would just send people. Rabbi Weinberg's father, Rabbi Weinberg just came in here right now. His father was sent, the Rebbe told him to go to Madagascar. Just go to Madagascar. Like 1960 something, Madagascar. And he goes there and he finds Jews in the Jewish community that were yearning for people to come. And there's thousands of stories like that. It just happened to be Rabbi Weinberg was just here. Madagascar. Imagine someone telling you to go to Madagascar. What? Doesn't make any. Anyway, tzaddikim see things, and they don't. There's no time for me to explain. Just go there. Don't worry, it'll work itself out. Just start asking people, "Are you Jewish?" You look. Clearly, you're a Jew. I sent you there because you got to find other Jews. Just start asking for other Jews. And then something incredible happens. Usually right away, or not even right away. By the way, might not be. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so Avram Bar Sarah in Ephron's land, he wanted to pay. We spoke about that earlier. Now here we go. Rivka's family at first is reluctant to send her, and they send her out. And fine, she starts heading towards Yitzchak, and it says that Yitzchak raised his eyes towards the evening. Towards the evening refers to Mincha. Here is where we see Yitzchak establishes Mincha. Now, really, Mincha should be called. Well, he isn't established, but it says Maisa Avos Siman Labanim. What does that mean? Maisa Avos, this is a very important line. Maisa Avos Siman Labanim. The actions of our forefathers are a sign for their children. What does that mean? That whatever happens to them, that repeats itself in their family. So not everything will happen to one particular person, but the idea of basically every single situation starts bleak and dark and ends up being light. But anything they did, it says that he took sticks. Yeah, we knew we were going to have tefillin one day. Here, Avram set up shacharis. Here we have a thing that Yitzchak set up the afternoon prayer, because we knew that there was going to be a karbanis in the morning, karbanis in the evening, and even psychological actions, all these different types of things, that calamities that have happened will happen to the Jewish people in one way or another. So here we go. We have mincha. He establishes mincha over here, says Rashi. Why is it called mincha? It should really be called saharayim. Saharayim means afternoon. The morning prayers is called shacharis, shacharit. Shacharit means the sun, meaning the sun is risen. Saharayim is the afternoon. Arvit, or mariv, is evening, means evening time. So, but why do we call it mincha? Because mincha means a present. It means a gift. Mincha is the most special prayer you can do during the day because it is in the middle of the day. God calls it a gift. You could take a break from your day and dedicate it to me, the busy, bustling day. That's a gift. You're giving me a gift. It says that Eliyahu, Navi, Elijah the prophet only answers prayers or carries your prayers to Hashem during mincha time. It's also the shortest. So there is something, now there's rules about when is mincha start, when is mincha end. You have to be very careful with that. In the wintertime, it's pretty short. You got to find quickly. Oh, my phone is ringing. 1 second. Just want to make sure it's not anybody. Okay, it's mine. Okay, I'll call back in a second. Okay. The middle of the day. It says he brought her. Rivka comes, he sees her, and he says he brought her into his tent and he loved her. Really, it should say, the Talmud says it should say he loved her, and then he brought her into his tent. Love meaning like he actually had an affection for her. But says the Talmud, no, that's not how it works. True love comes after you've already brought the person, you've already made the commitment, the relationship, because then you're going to go through trials and tribulations together. Second time I've used that phrase. And when you see the person, how they react in different situations, when you go through all these struggles, you have greater appreciation for the person. Love will grow, and the love grows as time goes. That's why you find by older Hasidim, they cry during davening. Why do they cry during davening? Because when the words have very different meanings to them now. The struggles, and the relationship with Hashem is much deeper than it was obviously when they were, 13, 14, whenever they started davening. So it says he brought her into his tent and then he left. He established the home and then the true love begins. The parsha ends with Avram. I'm gonna have to cut it short because I have to whatever. My people are calling me. The parsha ends with Avram marrying Keturah. Who's Keturah? Keturah was Hagar, says Torah. Hagar was Hagar was kicked out, and she changed her name to Keturah. Keturah means Ketoris, incense. She would burn incense for idols. But Rashi brings down that she didn't really mean it, right? We spoke about this, I think, 2 weeks ago. She was hurt by Avram kicking her out. Really, Sarah kicked her out. And she was a hard line, Avram was chesed and Sarah was gevura. She did what we had to do to maintain what we have to maintain. She was a woman of complete chesed, of kindness, and she opened her home and she opened everything and said when she was breastfeeding, she would have any child that wanted to come could breastfeed from her. Everybody wanted to nurse from her because to have a part of sorrow within their child. But there's lines, there's parameters. There are things. There's a certain thing that I need to maintain. We're not just open. Unlike my husband was open and did whatever to anybody, gave everything away. It's like, but there are certain things that are private. There are certain things that are not to be given away. There are certain things that have to be still developed, and in order for it to come into proper fruition, much like a tree. You can't, if you just have a bunch of trees that grow wherever they want, a tree could just strangle itself. Or other trees can strangle other. You just let trees do whatever they want. They can strangle themselves. They can strangle within themselves. They can tie in their own. Their roots can cut off the circulation from themselves. So what do? They make sure the tree grows a certain way, and they tie it down. They tie it down and they protect it, which seemingly like you're imprisoning it, but no, this is the way it'll reach its highest potential. So Sarah says there are certain things, certain environments that I cannot leave my child. The child meant more than just a child. The child was the building of this nation, of this divine nation. I can't have him be, in a dangerous situation all the time. So he needs to have the proper environment for him to have the greatest potential. But he kicks out Hagar, kicks out Yishmael. Hagar is understandably very upset, and in order to stick it to her husband, she goes back to idol worship. And but the Rashi said she didn't really believe it. She was just so hurt. She was trying to hurt the one that hurt her. And ultimately, Avram saw that. Avram knew that and brought her back. And it says that Yishmael ultimately saw the value of what Sarah was trying to do, and what they were trying to accomplish when he let his brother go ahead of him during the Levaya, the procession, to bury the body of their father. He was Maida. He acknowledged that Sarah's way it was right, and Avram, our father's way it was right, and you go ahead of me. Okay, I need to stop here. I apologize for a short class. Anybody have any questions? Okay, that's it in a nutshell.
Rabbi, I have a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Was Hagar Pharaoh's daughter?
Yes. Yeah, one of them.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question.
Thanks.
Yeah, she was a princess. That's right. All right. Okay, everybody. I'll see you soon.
Shkoyach.
Yeah. Be well.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. See you guys.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah. Oh, Ted. Good to see you.